You've built a life that looks blessed, and it might be the very thing keeping you from the blessing God actually has for you. That comfortable routine, that predictable faith, that safe version of Christianity, where nothing hurts and nothing changes. It feels like peace, but peace and numbness wear the same mask. By the end of this, you'll understand why the wilderness you've been avoiding is the exact place God has been waiting to meet you. There's a moment in Exodus chapter 3 that most people rush past. Moses is tending sheep. He's been doing it for 40 years. 40 years in Midian after fleeing Egypt. And here's what's easy to miss. Moses had settled. He had a wife, children, a father-in-law's business. By every measure, his life was stable, comfortable, and completely disconnected from the purpose God had spoken over him decades earlier. Moses had traded calling for comfort, so gradually he probably forgot there was ever a trade. Then a bush catches fire and refuses to burn out. God doesn't show up in Moses' living room. He shows up in the wilderness, on the far side of the desert, in the place Moses would only reach by wandering beyond what was familiar. The burning bush wasn't near the sheep pen. It was past it. God positioned the encounter beyond the boundary of Moses' comfort, which means Moses had to walk past everything safe to reach it. That detail should sit heavy in your chest because you've been tending your own sheep, your routines, your weekend plans, your curated faith that asks God for blessings but flinches when he asks for obedience. You've arranged a life where following Jesus costs you almost nothing, and the terrifying part, it works. Comfort is functional. You can sustain it for years. Moses sustained it for 4 decades. But functional and faithful are 2 different currencies, and only one of them buys anything in eternity. Consider what God actually said from that burning bush. Exodus 3 verse 10, "Come now, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt." The assignment was absurd. A stuttering shepherd walking into the most powerful empire on earth to demand the release of an enslaved nation. Every rational calculation said stay with the sheep. The wilderness assignment made 0 sense by comfort's arithmetic. Moses pushed back. He argued. He offered excuses. Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh? And this is where God's response reshapes everything. He didn't answer the question Moses asked. He answered the question underneath it. Exodus 3 verse 12, "I will be with you." God didn't upgrade Moses' resume. He offered his presence. And his presence only becomes real in the place where your own strength runs out. That's the exchange the wilderness demands. You surrender capability for dependency. You trade the comfort of knowing you can handle your life for the terror and glory of knowing you can't, and discovering that God can. Think about your own prayer life for a moment. When was the last time you asked God for something that scared you? When did you last pray a prayer that, if God actually answered it, would wreck your current lifestyle? Most of us pray maintenance prayers. Keep my family safe, help me at work, bless this meal. These prayers are fine. They're also the prayers of someone tending sheep in Midian. They're the prayers of someone who has forgotten that God splits oceans. The wilderness strips away maintenance faith and replaces it with desperate faith. And desperate faith is the only kind that moves mountains. David understood this. Before the throne, before the Psalms that would echo through 3,000 years of worship, David spent years in literal wilderness, running from Saul, hiding in caves, eating whatever he could find. And it was there, in the cave of Adullam, in the wasteland of En-Gedi, that David wrote the words of Psalm 63 verse 1. "O God, you are my God. Earnestly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh faints for you. As in a dry and weary land, where there is no water." David didn't write that in a palace. He wrote it while dehydrated, exhausted, and hunted. His body was failing and his throat was dry, and his enemy wore a crown. Yet the psalm doesn't read like a complaint. It reads like a love letter, because the wilderness had burned away every competing affection until God was the only thing left. And when God is the only thing left, you discover He's the only thing you ever needed. Your comfort has too many competitors for God's attention in your heart. You know this. You feel it on Sunday morning when the sermon lands and something stirs in your chest, and by Tuesday, it's buried under deadlines and streaming queues and the gentle anesthesia of a life that never requires faith. The wilderness eliminates competitors. It doesn't feel like a gift when it arrives. It feels like loss. But pruning always looks like destruction to the branch that doesn't understand the vineyard. Jesus said it plainly in John 15 verse 2. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit he takes away, and every branch that does bear fruit he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. Pruning. The deliberate cutting of what's alive, healthy, and growing, because it's growing in the wrong direction. Some of the things God removes from your life during wilderness seasons are genuinely good things. Good relationships, good opportunities, good comforts. He cuts them because good has become the enemy of best. And you'll grip those good things with white knuckles, calling God cruel while he's trying to redirect your growth toward fruit that lasts. Here's where honest faith gets uncomfortable. The wilderness might last longer than you want. Moses got 40 years, David got roughly 15, Joseph got 13 years between the dream and the throne, most of them in slavery and prison. The biblical pattern is consistent and unsettling. The gap between God's promise and God's fulfillment is filled with wilderness. And the wilderness isn't a detour, it's the curriculum. Joseph couldn't have governed Egypt without the prison, the administrative skills, the ability to interpret dreams under pressure, the resilience that kept him sane through betrayal. All of it was forged in the place he'd never have chosen. Genesis 50, verse 20, is Joseph's wilderness thesis statement. As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive. Joseph didn't say the suffering was good, he said God's purpose was woven through it. The wilderness wasn't the absence of God's plan, it was the engine of it. So what does this mean for you, right now, in your comfortable life? It means you have a choice that gets harder to make every day you delay it. The call might be literal, a ministry you've been sensing, a conversation you've been avoiding, a financial sacrifice that makes your stomach drop. Or the call might be internal, surrendering control of your future, releasing a grudge that's become part of your identity, opening your Bible with the genuine expectation that God might say something that rearranges your priorities. The wilderness looks different for everyone. For some of you, it means leaving a career that pays well but starves your soul. For others, it means staying exactly where you are but engaging with a depth and vulnerability you've been avoiding. Sometimes the wilderness is geographical, often it's emotional, always it's spiritual. The common thread is this: the wilderness is wherever your self-sufficiency dies. And self-sufficiency is the most socially acceptable idol in the modern church. We praise the put-together Christian, the one who has it figured out, the one who serves on 3 teams, gives generously, and never seems to struggle. But behind that polished exterior is often a person who has learned to manage their faith so efficiently that they've eliminated any need for God to actually show up. Their Christianity runs on autopilot, and autopilot will fly the plane, but it will never take you somewhere you haven't already programmed. Paul wrote to the Corinthians about a thorn in his flesh, something that tormented him. He begged God 3 times to remove it. God's answer in 2 Corinthians 12 verse 9 redefines strength. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. God's power reaches its full expression in the exact place where yours collapses. Your weakness is the stage. Your inability is the invitation. The wilderness creates the conditions for God to display what comfort never could. So stop praying for comfort. Pray for courage. Stop asking God to bless the life you've built and start asking Him to show you the life He's building. The gap between those 2 prayers is the distance between Midian and the burning bush. You might be afraid, that's fine. Moses was afraid. David was afraid. Elijah ran and hid under a broom tree and asked God to let him die. Fear and faith have always traveled together. The question was never whether you'd feel fear. The question is whether you'll walk past the sheep pen anyway. Somewhere past the edge of everything you've arranged, everything you've controlled, everything you've settled for, there's a bush on fire. It's been burning for a while now, waiting for you to wander close enough to notice. God already knows your excuses. He's heard better ones from Moses. And his answer to you is the same answer he gave on that desert mountain thousands of years ago. I will be with you. Take off your sandals. The ground you've been avoiding is holy.